Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. Personalizing the end-of-life experience. Well, we're talking about hospice, and what does hospice do, and how can it personalize the end-of-life experience for you or for a loved one? Well, I couldn't think of anyone better to come talk about that than my friends at Hospice of the South Coast. We have Tegan and we have Kristen. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
My pleasure. So there's a stigma, I guess, I'm not sure if stigma is the right word, maybe misconception about what hospice is and how it works. So Tegan, we're going to start with you.
Yeah.
30,000 feet. What's the perception versus the reality?
Yeah, hospice is kind of it's a scary word for a lot of people. I know personally it was for myself. I went through it with my father years ago, and initially the connotation is you're going to die tomorrow, and it's scary. And I think for us as professionals in the industry, we really want to kind of rewrite the script on that and help kind of recreate a new understanding of what hospice is and really all the benefits and the beauty that can be held within it. And what's available to the folks in the community.
So when you talk about hospice, really what hospice is doing is creating a different type of experience for someone's end of life, but it doesn't necessarily have to be end of life. You hear lots of people who are on hospice for a longer period of time or graduate off of hospice. So it's not, like you said, the perception is they hear the word hospice, okay, they're going to be dying tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful thing in the sense of, on paper, within 6 months or less, you have to have a prognosis from a doctor that you could potentially pass, right? But no one has a crystal ball, and we don't know what everyone's individual journeys look like. So as long as you are qualified, which is something our team can support with, you're able to join the Hospice of the South Coast or any sort of agency's umbrella and team and become part of the family. And with that, you get so many benefits within it to really come from a holistic approach, mind, body, and spirit, meeting each individual patient family member where they're at and providing care that works for them in their space with a variety of team members. But really the goal is to provide quality of life wherever those individuals reside, to make sure that we're supporting them in their day-to-day journey as they're struggling with these typically newer diagnoses that they're receiving. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Kristen, when you and I were talking before today, you were talking about being able to die in your own terms. Whether it's where you want to pass, maybe staying out of a facility or someplace else in your own home or wherever it's going to be.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
So in the healthcare system, healthcare can only go so far. So you were mentioning when people graduate or maybe get better, and it's fascinating to see what makes someone thrive. And there's a limited understanding, like clinicians can only come to an issue with the clinical mind so far. But when you really love and support someone or give them the environment that supports well-being for them, an environment that they're comfortable in, where their sleep isn't interrupted, where their family can gather, where they have a large living room, the grandkids are climbing up on the couch, and they hear that, it creates a different sense of well-being. And yes, well-being is really important even when you're dying. It's just such a beautiful part of someone's journey. So to tell someone that just because they've aged or just because they're suffering or just because they're in a disease state and they can't do the things that everyone around them can do doesn't mean that they have to go somewhere else. They don't have to go somewhere else because that's the social construct where our brain goes, oh, you've aged out of the neighborhood, now you have to go live here. Or you're in a wheelchair or you're in a hospital bed, so that should be in this place. It's if you can bring the care to someone else, and that's one of the things the pandemic for sure opened a lot of people's minds around, which is exciting to see the changes in policy, is that we can provide a very high level of care pretty much anywhere. And when you can do that, when you can bring the care to where someone's at, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, then you can creep love in there too. And when you do that, if you add love to a care plan, it's something that you can't have a prognosis for. Like, you just don't know how well someone's going to do when you add that to the mix. And sometimes, yes, people do get better, and miracles happen outside of what we can define in the healthcare system.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Also, before to here, you had a couple nuggets, a couple lines, and I'm going to let you say the golf-related one.
Yeah, to me, and I don't know where this ever came to me. There's no mulligans in hospice, right? There's no do-overs. It really should be a really beautiful experience, and having a full team of people coming together to create that beautiful, individualized plan of care should help us get there. And that's why it's so important to have people with really true hospice hearts that are meeting you where you're at to say, okay, what are your goals of care? What do you need through this process? Knowing that that's going to ebb and flow, probably on a day-to-day basis. And really just another layer of love, wrapping our arms around them to create this beautiful experience. People all over the world have experienced sorrow and loss in so many different ways, especially during the pandemic. Yeah. But we really want to make sure that we do it correctly the first time. And if somebody has had an experience where maybe it was not a beautiful experience, we want to really be able to change that mindset and that experience maybe with another loved one. We just want to make sure it's done correctly. Hospice is such a beautiful thing. It's a gift, that through things like Medi-Cal and Medicare and even charity funding, people can receive wherever they call home, in whatever location that they're receiving care. And so, for us as providers, and I know other folks in the industry, really, really wanting to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're really providing exceptional care for people that need it most. Right. Because you've got one shot to show up and perform and overpromise or underpromise, and overdeliver, and make sure that people have everything that they need. But it doesn't stop just when people pass either. There's this whole beautiful kind of after support that you get on a bereavement side, or support with kind of next steps, and really you do become part of this really big family of people that want to help you grow and move on to the next steps so that you can find that peace and begin your own journey and your next steps on where you want to go after the passing of a loved one.
Right. I love it too, because hospice, creates the environment where people don't die alone. They have family member there. If they don't have family members, they have hospice, where hospice can bring the family members together. They can make amends and do all those types of things. Now, hospice, people sometimes think hospice is palliative care and it's interchangeable, but it is and it's not. So what are the differences, and how does that all work?
Yeah, it can be a little confusing. I know when I first even started in healthcare, I was like, okay, what's what? Palliative care is definitely a beautiful thing as well. It's definitely a lot palatable on the tongue to digest and to understand. It's comfort-focused care, right? It's really making sure that people's quality of life is there. The beautiful thing about hospice is everything that we do as a team is palliative in nature. So it definitely falls under that umbrella. A lot of times, though, people feel more comfortable pursuing palliative first to get an understanding of what the team looks like and what care might be provided. 9 times out of 10, if you are eligible for palliative, you're also eligible for hospice. Hospice having a few more perks and additional services available. Palliative, though, is typically when people are still wanting to pursue some of those more aggressive treatments. Hospice is really supporting in kind of the end-of-life journey and preparing for whatever that might look like, even though, again, we don't know exactly what the time frame is, but really helping people come to terms and understanding what that journey might look like, with their own physical well-being, with the care needed for their family, and the kind of additional support moving forward. So I would say they're used pretty interchangeably in today's world, but it's definitely something that the goals are the same, right? To make sure people are not in pain, that they are having support systems at home, and that they're really getting, again, these services that are available to them. Hospice does have a few more additional things that are covered with some of the medications and some of the additional support that you're getting, again, going back to bereavement and kind of some additional spiritual care. But definitely, if folks are considering it, I would say, talk to your doctor, talk to your primary care physician, people that you trust with your healthcare information, and have a discussion about it. I think the more we educate ourselves on what hospice is and what's available, the more empowered we feel to make decisions about our own care and for our loved ones.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Hospice of the South Coast is rewriting the script, another line you used, for the future of hospice. And I know, Kristen, we talked about, the vision of the future. What does that vision look like?
It's really exciting, actually, because institutionalized care models, I think that everyone in healthcare is looking at how to pivot from that model. And what does that look like? Well, there's hospital at home models. There's a huge initiative to expand palliative programming, which means you'll see several systems offering palliative programs, hospital systems, maybe assisted living, PACE programs. But when it comes to the end of life, and when it comes to people being able to define what they want that to look like, and how it's like planned, and it's hard to explain, but if you can imagine being able to talk to someone about death. We learn in school, like when your body changes. In middle school, they teach you about puberty, right? But nobody really, there's no curriculum to teach you about dying. There's no curriculum, what happens to the body as it ages, what happens to the body when it dies. And I think this pandemic opened up this huge window of opportunity where people were saying, let's have these conversations now. Like what happens, and what does it look like when we get the opportunity to do this on our own terms? So the families that are left to grieve, or the families that are left here in this world, they can inform the care plan. They can say how they want the journey to be. She says hospice is a gift, and it really is. And we say, like, you only live once, but that's not true. In every moment, you get to choose again, how you want your life to look. If you want to be an extrovert, an introvert, whatever, we can try on different ways of not just living once, but you really only die once, right? That's the truth of it. And we never say that. We never say, you only die once. What do you want it to look like? And some people jokingly will say, oh, when I go, I want to go in my sleep, or I want to go. But there's a bigger conversation that I think we're all collectively ready to have. When we go, what do we want it to look like for our children, for our spouse, for our extended family, for the legacy that we leave behind? What do we want to be remembered for? Did we matter? Did we contribute? Are we done yet? Is there anything left on our bucket list that we want to do? And is there a team that can help support make that happen? Can we get creative with this? And I say we can. I say, why not? Why not? Why stop the conversation clinically? I think there's a community-based conversation to have, and there's other organizations that hopefully will be willing to jump in and join arms and affiliate and say, let's do this together,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, it's about education and communication, right? When we empower ourselves and our loved ones to really know what's available, and we link arms with others in the community that can help guide us on these journeys, and we have open dialogue about it, sky's the limit, right, on what you're able to do. And it's really just digging deep, like Kristen said, and saying, what do I want it to look like? And it not being a faux pas conversation, right? It being an open dialogue with loved ones and saying, you know what, we know that everyone's going to pass at some point, but let's have a conversation about it and talk as a family about what we want it to look like. And let's bring people in that want to support us in making that happen in a way that is a memorable, beautiful thing that we can hold on to. And so I think the more that we educate ourselves and our loved ones, and we have conversations and dialogue, and we really just, open up the opportunity of the what ifs, I think it leads to so many unknowns, but so many beautiful opportunities for things to be put together for families that didn't know it was possible otherwise.
Right.
And so I think for our team, it's really just having those tough conversations, but helping to guide families to say, like, what if we could do this? Like, let's not put a cap on it. Let's just talk about it. Let's dive in. And really empowering them to make these decisions of, like, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do it together. And so they get to create their own journey, and we just get to come in behind them and love on them the whole time and make sure that we're helping to navigate that process. So.
Yeah. I think, as a society, we're perpetually having our heads in the sand.
Yeah.
If we don't talk about it, it won't happen.
Yep.
But it will happen. So let's talk about it, and really embracing the fact that truly everything's on the table. Everything is possible. If you start out with that mindset of, instead of being, more narrow, more restrictive, it's more of an abundance mentality of everything's possible, now let's discuss it, then people like you and others can come together and kind of figure it out. So your information's on the screen. So we have Hospice of the South Coast website, phone number are on there. Give them a call, learn more about what they do, or go on their website, learn more about the company, what the future of hospice looks like to them, and maybe to you or to a loved one as well. Tegan, Kristen, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for having us.